Hi, everybody. We are in week 12. We're getting closer to the Thanksgiving break, which I think will be really a nice thing for all of us, but not there quite yet. I do want to go over what we're doing this week, especially given my mistake from last week. So I put an announcement in Canvas a few days ago that pointed out that in last week's video, I had said that we would do our peer review of major writing assignment number 3, but I had the due date for that draft for this week. So apologies for that mix-up. That's my mistake. So we're going to be doing our peer review draft this week. Let's get into our overview, and we'll see kind of what's on deck for the rest of this week as well. So you can see we're doing 2 assignments and then 2 readings this week. So pretty standard. And we'll do 1 assignment and 1 reading for each kind of half of the week. So on Wednesday, we've got the draft, which I'll talk about in a moment, and then the 2 readings that you'll do are actually, it's kind of cool. They're examples of student writing that's very similar to the kind of writing you're doing for major writing assignment number 3. So you can look at these kind of as, just examples for you to get inspiration from and to see the kind of writing that, writing about a discourse community looks like. So the first one is by a student named Sean Brannick, and then the other one is by a student named Ariana Feldman. So let's take a look at each of these in more detail. For the peer review draft, and this is what I said in last week's video, but this week we're actually going to do it. This is, as we've done before, due on Wednesday at 11:59 p.m., and it has to be submitted at by 11:59 p.m. on Wednesday, or else Canvas won't include you in the peer review. So it's very important that you submit by 11:59 on Wednesday. Now, if you've already submitted your draft and you didn't want to make any other changes to it, great, you're good to go. You don't need to resubmit it. If you do want to make adjustments or you have other ideas, kind of improve it a little bit before the peer review, you can feel free to resubmit and that'll be fine. Now, on Thursday morning, you'll see that Canvas has assigned you somebody else's draft to review. So between now and Wednesday, you'll work on actually completing your draft and submitting it. And then from Thursday to Sunday, I want you to actually give the feedback to the person whose draft you've been assigned. And just a reminder, like I've done before, these are really important for your grade. These 3 drafts that we've done account for 30% of your whole grade for this course. So I'll give you half credit for submitting your draft on time, and then the rest of the other half of the credit for providing good feedback to another student in the class. That'll take up probably the bulk of the time that you have for this class for this week. But I do want you to take a look at these other readings. So this one, like I mentioned, is written by a student about a discourse community. This one's about football coaches, an ethnographic study of the football coaching discourse community. And this one you can find in our textbook. The next one is one that I think used to be in previous editions of our textbook, but is not anymore. So I have it as a downloadable PDF for you. You can download it from this page on the Canvas site. And this one is about writing strategies used by official Star Wars bloggers. Earlier in this video, I might have called her Ariana Feldman. I apologize for that. It's Arielle Feldman. But this is another good example of a completely different discourse community, so that you get kind of 2 very different takes on what it looks like to write about the discourse communities in the ways that I'm asking you to for this class. And then the last thing we have is our process portfolio entry. Now, this is similar to the one that I had posted for last week before I realized about my mistake, but I've made a little change to it. So I want to talk just a little bit about it so that you're clear on what I'm asking for. So last week you read about writing strategies for student and expert writers by Nancy Summers. And in that article, she identifies 4 different levels of change in revision. You can change things at the word level, the phrase level, the sentence level, and the theme level. And by theme, she means the extended statement of one idea. So this is something that you have to use like paragraphs basically to talk about. In the readings you did for this week, you saw 2 examples of different essays from students just like you writing about discourse communities. So I want in this reflection for you to kind of bring those 2 things together in this way. First, I want you to try to identify at least one revision for each of the 4 levels that Summers talks about, like revisions that you would make on the word level, on the phrase level, the sentence level, and the theme level. And I'm talking about in the draft that you submitted this week for major writing assignment number 3. I want you to focus on changes that you plan to make to the theme level. We can easily fix misspelled words or a phrase here or there, but when we have to really rethink what we're trying to say because it wasn't clear to somebody to begin with, that takes a lot of effort, but it really can make our writing much improved. So I want you to identify a theme level change that you need to make and then write about 100 words reflecting on why that change is needed and how making that change is going to improve the final draft of major writing assignment 3 that you submit. So that's part 1 of this reflection. Part 2 is to identify an additional revision that you plan to make that was inspired by one of these examples that you read. Now, you're probably not writing about football coaches or Star Wars bloggers. Maybe you are. But there's not going to be kind of that one-to-one direct comparison for you between discourse communities. But as you read these examples, I hope that you'll be able to take away some interesting things or some really good ways that they presented information that can inspire you in your draft. So I want you to identify one of those and then write another 100 words describing what about the sample essay was inspiring to you and how that change can help you with major writing assignment number 3 to make it better. Now, I haven't asked you to do this before, but I want you to use headers in this reflection. One that says theme level change and one that says sample inspired change. And just write the 100 words under each of those headers. That way it's really easy to tell where you're writing about each one. So I've also just got our assignment description for major writing assignment number 3 in this week's module, even though it's not due quite yet. But you'll want to be checking it, looking at the rubric, making sure that you're hitting all of these expectations as you work on this draft this week. So that is our week for week 12. Of course, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. Thanks, everybody.